Next, I would like to introduce the founding members of the Black Research Network Steering Committee. Dr. Rhonda McEwen, Vice Principal Academic and Dean of University of Toronto, Mississauga, and Associate Professor of New Media and Communication. Dr. Maydianne Andrade is the former Vice Dean, Faculty Affairs and Equity, and Professor of Biological Sciences at the University of Toronto in Scarborough. Dr. Alissa Trotz is the Professor of Caribbean Studies at New College, and also the Director of Women and Gender Studies at the University of Toronto. And Dr. Lisa Robinson is the Vice Dean, Strategy and Operations of the Temerity Faculty of Medicine and Professor in the Department of Pediatrics. Dean Rhonda McEwen, I will hand it off to you to say a few words.
Thank you so much, Nicole, and thank you, Beth. What an incredible day to see this day come where we launch the Black Research Network. For just a couple of minutes, I'm going to try and paint for you the origin story of the BRN, which actually is the story of the Black Faculty Working Group at the University of Toronto. This Black Faculty Working Group is a live group of now 80+ Black identifying faculty at the tri-campus, so on all 3 campuses at the University of Toronto. And we came together in what I recall to be a fairly chilly, dark March evening in 2016. Our goal was to stand in support of our students who were on the front lines of the Black Lives Matter Toronto movement. If you recall, at that time, our students were occupying the streets, the sidewalks, and the steps around the police services in the city. We came together that evening, and we were actually more than University of Toronto that evening in a wonderful room that Ryerson University opened up for us. And we included University of Toronto, Ryerson, York, Queen's, Dalhousie, Brock, and even McGill faculty who came together to discuss what we as Black faculty owed to our students and to ourselves as they took themselves out of the classroom to stand for Black people. Following our press we did a press release. We wrote a very strong statement. It was entitled Statement from Members of the Black Academic Community in Support of Black Lives Matter, Toronto. We issued that, and then as the group separated again, those of us from University of Toronto wanted to keep going with our advocacy work. In the fall of that year, we met with the Vice Provost faculty at the time and the team to figure out how we could progress things. We then came together as a group of University of Toronto Black faculty and wrote a mandate and a vision for our group. From that came 3 working groups that worked with the Provost office very closely. We worked on issues of Black faculty recruitment and retention, Black student recruitment, success and representation, and curriculum and academic programming. From that group, many of the things we see today are starting to bear fruit. But we weren't done. We decided we now needed to focus on the research collaborations and really see how we could improve the research success of our hires and our existing faculty. This then spread the sentiment around networks to include postdoctoral fellows and Black graduate students on our campuses. And then we approached the Institutional Strategic Initiative folks and had incredible support. So I do echo Beth's thanks to Christine Allen and her team for really spearheading and pushing along the ISI that is now the Black Research Network that we launched today. I'm just going to end very quickly by saying I could not be prouder of the work that we have done. From a seed of advocacy, we have now given many fruits, one of the shiniest, is what we see happening today. And I am committed in my role as Vice Principal Academic and Dean at University of Toronto, Mississauga, to continue to support the Black Research Network in all of its coming successes. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean McEwen. Next up, we have Dr. Maydianne Andrada.
Thank you so much. It really is a pleasure to be here today to celebrate this launch of the Black Research Network. I echo the thanks that have already been said. And I come from a different perspective of fundamental research in the sciences, where the phenomenon of being the lonely only is particularly acute. When I was hired in 2000, at the turn of the 21st century, mind you, I had no idea that I would be one of only a handful of Black scientists working in fundamental research at the university. And I had no idea that that statistic would barely shift for 20 years. Nor did I realize that this was true at institutions across Canada. While Black academics are underrepresented among faculty in general, this is even more acute in the sciences. Now, there's likely to be many reasons for that, but it's clear to me that the Black Research Network can help with most of them, not just within U of T, but nationally. So why are Black academics particularly absent from the sciences? One issue is that in comparison with other fields where expertise can be acquired through a wide range of paths, in the sciences, knowledge is traditionally built through fairly linear ladders of learning and practice. Missing even one of these rungs can make it very challenging to make it to the top. And there are data showing quite clearly that there are many ways in which Black people at every stage, from kindergarten through early career researchers and beyond, are in fact discouraged or actively prevented from continuing on that ladder. We know that we can change those outcomes. And those changes can come through mentorship, through sponsorship, through innovative approaches to research funding, and through advising from others who understand the challenges that come with Black identity in our current structure. The Black Research Network can provide all of that. Now, more than these things, the visibility of Black researchers in itself can reverse deficit narratives by demonstrating them to be untrue. And very inspiring to know that research shows that even one role model, exposure to even one Black scientist, can change how a young person thinks about what's possible in their future. It's sad that currently, most of our students are graduating without exposure to even that one Black role model. The Black Research Network will highlight role models that can inspire Black youth, and almost as important, normalize Black scientists and researchers for all Canadians. Right now, there's simply not enough Black scientists to do that alone in fundamental research. So I'm grateful that I no longer have to be a lonely only, and I'm grateful to be part of this community and this university in which we no longer have to do this work alone. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Andrada. Dr. Alissa Trotz, I would like to invite you up next to say a few words.
Thank you. We could not be more delighted to momentarily stop to celebrate this launch. And to our sister, Beth Coleman, the most massive props and respect to you for your commitment, discipline, and care. I love that the BRN focus for this first year is data science and health science. Given the moment we are in and some of the critical work being done by incredible colleagues like Anya Naram and Roberta Timothy, when we remember that some of the earliest Black graduates from U of T were from the medical school, Alexander Thomas Augusta and Anderson Ruffin Abbott, and because of the fact that it gets us to think about what counts and its relation to Black hypervisibility and invisibility, there is a different kind of accounting we can attune ourselves to. It's the kind of accounting that understands that the BRN is the result of our collective work, and there should be nothing possessive about that pronoun. It is always a wonderful experience to learn alongside Rhonda McEwen, Lisa Robinson, Maydianne Andrade, and with the unstinting support of Kathleen Schaefer, Learning and Research Coordinator at UTM. And it has been the contributions of Black students, postdocs, faculty, staff, that is the immediate condition of possibility of this Black Research Network. It is about showing up, holding each other up when some of us have to step back, working to get ourselves on the same page, because no, we're not into some simple idea or racist stereotype that Black folk are all in agreement on means and ends. The BRN is one beautiful materialization of that difficult process, and it will unfold. It's the kind of accounting that reckons with the fact that it was Black students at our university who organized themselves into the Black Liberation Collective a few years ago and insisted on a reckoning with numbers that mattered, from cancellation of student debt and student fees to finding out how many and which of us made it here, who stayed, who lasted, and at what cost. We would do well to remember the partially cash promissory note when we hear self-congratulatory tales that our university was the first and so far perhaps the only one in Canada that has begun to disaggregate statistics in ways that can account for Black life. And perhaps most importantly, the kind of capacious accounting that follows us out of these institutional spaces we inhabit, like the pre-gentrification annexed geographies of the 1960s and 1970s, when it was a lively and bustling space where Black folks gathered. It was, after all, Black students and community members, youth, domestic workers, train porters among them, who created the transitional year program at the University of Toronto, and who then went straight back into the community to create the Black Education Project, fostering intergenerational habits of Black study from below for those students accepted into colleges and universities, spaces where they were fiercely loved and valued as they prepared to enter institutions of higher education that had been forced to open their doors, but just a crack. These infrastructures of support born out of the transitional year program are, I would argue, the basis of the writing centers proliferating across our university today for all students who need them. Such is the unacknowledged Black debt, and there is so much more. Let me close with a brief story. Cautionary note or celebration or both, you decide. Several years ago, a Black student from the Caribbean Studies program attended a public event. She came with her mother, visiting from Jamaica, and we would learn later that night she had worked as a janitor, unionized in those days, a far cry from our contemporary worlds of subcontracted precarious labor that predominantly wears a Black and brown face and which our own University of Toronto is not immune from. Proud mother and daughter, audience members at the very same college this mother had given decades of service to. Let me be clear, this is not about visibility. That kind of counting is too easy, too cheap, and it's also a trap. This is about the work of Black social reproduction that we must attend to, that must count, that should always have a front seat in our intellectual imaginations, that should remind us of the real debts that we owe and to whom, and of the work remaining to be done, to interrupt those narratives of excellence that count the wrong things, that count too few of us, that count in limited ways, that should not count. This is the Black research excellence in our midst, surrounding us every day. As Bob Marley would say, it's our head cornerstone, and it is our task to honor it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Trotz. And last but not least, Dr. Lisa Robinson.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here. And let me simply add my thanks and express my joy in seeing the BRN launch today. First off, thank you, Beth, for your extraordinary leadership. And thank you, Rhonda, Alissa, Maydianne, and Kathleen Schaefer for your vision and passion and for taking an idea and making it real. Thank you to the community of Black learners, staff, faculty, and librarians across all our campuses who lift all of us up. And thank you to Christine Allen and the ISI team for your critical support of the BRN. It's especially important, as we've heard, in the STEM fields and in biomedical research, where our own data here at U of T tell us that Black learners, staff, and faculty are so few within our spaces. In his piece entitled Lonely in the Lab, Zaki Hassan, a graduate student in biochemistry here, recently wrote about what it feels like to be one of the only. Zaki wrote, "The first feeling is a common one to many, imposter syndrome, but it's not your regular imposter syndrome by any means. It has teeth. Feeling like you don't belong or are less qualified than your peers is a sentiment that comes and goes based on your accomplishments of the day. However, seeing that you don't belong, not by how you're treated, but by the absence of folk who look like you, while feeling like you don't belong, is a more permanent and everlasting feeling." The BRN is the opportunity to change that narrative. It's the opportunity to build connections and collaborations and to promote Black excellence at U of T and beyond. The power of the BRN to catalyze innovation in biomedical research and to mentor and build careers of brilliant Black researchers cannot be overstated. And to this end, as you've heard, we're actively working on a BRN health science research agenda. But we're also mindful that this work cannot occur in a standalone fashion. but rather it must occur in partnership with the 15 partner hospitals and research institutes that make up the Toronto Academic Health Science Network. So with that, I'll just wrap up and just tell you again, express my gratitude and my joy for seeing this day come, and to all of you who helped make this day a possibility.
Thank you so much, Dr. Robinson. And again, my congratulations to the steering committee on a successful launch today. There is so much history of solidarity and advocacy here, and using this as the momentum toward empowering Black excellence is truly a blessing to be part of, I think, for all of us at U of T, with the BRN as the beacon to this work.